The following program contains content that some of our viewers may find disturbing or triggering. Viewer discretion is strongly advised. Well, hello there. Thank you for joining me for this week's edition of Telile 24/7. I'm your host, Adam Cook, and we have a very busy show for you this week. Later on in the program, we'll take a deep dive into Richmond County's new accessibility program by hearing some commentary from some of the consultants that worked on it with local officials and residents. You're also going to hear about the Mi'kmaq Summer Games coming to Potlotek First Nation later this summer. And we'll take a look at the issue of non-resident property owners and new taxation measures that have been put in place by the new provincial budget against these people. But we begin with the continuing fallout from the suspension by council of District 2 member Michael Diggdon from all council meetings and activities through the month of April. One of those meetings at which Michael Diggdon wasn't present was the April 11th meeting of Richmond's Committee of the Whole. But two county residents who had concerns about the process used to lead up to the suspension of Michael Diggdon spoke out at this particular meeting, with a couple of them expressing various concerns about how council declares a conflict of interest in a case like this, and what will happen in terms of future meetings and future issues involving Councillor Diggdon. So we're going to hear from Lewisdale resident Tommy Sampson in just a few minutes, but we begin with St. Peter's resident Jessica Webb.
So I'm just wondering why, number one, why it took so long for the investigation to be done. If it was found in November and you just made a decision recently, it's quite a long time period to make a decision and investigate. Also, was there any certain process you followed in your investigation? Any specific steps that you took? Why was it only Warden and Councillor Sean Sampson that did the investigation? Why was Brent and Melanie not involved?
So in terms of the timeline, Jessica, what I can tell you is that there's some confidential information, I guess, that I can't really share about that. I will tell you there was a storm factor at one point as well.
There was a COVID factor.
And a COVID factor. But in terms of some of the other circumstances there, I can't really speak to that, because I think it would kind of betray the confidence of the member of the public who had been speaking with me. And although I know there's much information out there in the media, I think, as a council, we still have a responsibility to her. So I just want to respect that. So I can't really say too much other than that. Yep. The other question you had was... Yeah,
are you able to speak on why it was...
Just us?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the family member in question, I have a relationship with. She knows me well. So she brought it to my attention. I, within 5 minutes, brought it to Warden Marburkett's attention. We did discuss it amongst ourselves. We can't talk too much about in-camera stuff, but very much like the Point Upper Fire Department situation, we decided that we would send so many people to Point Upper to talk about a fire department contract. We pretty much did the same here. We said, the person in question reached out to Sean. He reached out to the warden, and we're going to agree to investigate ourselves, the both of us, and bring back to council what we find out.
It was a decision of council, though, was the point, was to appoint the two of us to take, it was like almost to take the lead on it, but all the information came back.
Right, important to note, like at every stage of all of the parts, the entire council, of course, with the exception of Councillor Diggdon, were made aware of all of the things that were happening. I think that is really important to note that. I mean, it's difficult to coordinate times to meet people together. So if you have 5 councillors, it could also be a little overwhelming and maybe a bit intimidating as well for someone to come forward with an issue if they know they're going to meet like 4 other people, or it could be a bit. So we kind of considered all of those pieces when deciding on who would proceed.
Okay. Yeah. Another question I have is, why was Councillor Diggdon not put on leave as soon as the investigation began?
So councillors are not employees of the municipality, and that is the issue that we're running into. We don't have the authority or the power to place any one of each other on any kind of, unpaid kind of leave, whatever. We can't, it wouldn't have been in good conscience for us to issue any kind of corrective action as per our code of conduct policy without doing the investigation first. It would sort of be like presuming someone guilty before you have even, really gotten the information. And so that really, I can tell you point blank, that is why. We had a responsibility to both the constituent who reported the matter and to Councillor Diggdon to make sure that we, spoke to them both and collected information from both. And once that was done, then we were able to make our decision. But honestly, it's, there are really specific limits on what we as a council can do. And no step have we taken without getting both advice from municipal affairs and legal advice. So I've had, all kinds of questions come through. I have a summary, Jessica, that because you're the chair of the recreation committee?
I was.
You were?
I stepped down
Okay.
after.
Okay,
Diggdon's breach.
if you're interested, I can send you some of that process information with the
please.
statutes and stuff. And I think that might help to clarify, because it does include some of the the legal sort of things that we're bound by.
Yep.
And I think that would be maybe helpful.
Also addressing his concerns about Councillor Diggdon to the Richmond Committee of the Whole meeting of April 11th was county resident Tommy Sampson, who is also a teacher at Richmond Education Centre and Academy. Sampson had several issues regarding Councillor Diggdon's suspension and the process it took to get to a suspension, including questions about the public knowledge of the investigation and suspension of Councillor Diggdon by the rest of Municipal Council, and also whether there could be other text messages that Councillor Diggdon has sent that would also require action.
In specific reference to the media releases, so as a resident, I'm wondering why we're not more consistent with the press releases coming out of here. So we came out with a press release, like the most recent one that I remember is in relation to the announcement of a CAO, so Don announcing a retirement. And then we have council making a motion on the 28th about Councillor Diggdon and a breach of the code of conduct. And I'm just wondering why, in that circumstance, we didn't have a press release. Like, why wouldn't we, as a county, want to get out in front of and have whatever information you guys had to work with that you're able to release, given that it was in camera, as opposed to it come out on the Reporter or whatever, and that's not knocking any media outlet, but so that this council can get out in front of that narrative. So I'm just wondering why, or if that's just an oversight, and if it's something that...
I think it's a couple of things. So number one is we don't have a consistent communications plan, although I know Yvonne and I took a real stab at that in the summer. We're hoping that through our strategic planning that will be addressed, but we don't have a consistent system. And what I did in that case, I can tell you, is I took the motions and put them together because they were over 2 meetings.
Yeah.
And I forwarded those motions to the media directly. So they would have the accurate information, because of course there were questions coming in. And so that's how I handled that.
Okay.
But in terms of consistency, Tommy, what we need to do is resource a communications plan for the county, period.
I'm trying to imagine a scenario where we move forward with, let's say, advisory committees, advisory organizations where community members from Richmond County are volunteering to work with committees where there are councillors sitting in those committees. And then more specifically, I'm trying to imagine a circumstance where a committee would involve Councillor Diggdon, and that committee would have females sitting at the table. And how do we move forward? And so while I'm not a female, I am a dad, and I do have a daughter. And so I'm trying to reconcile all this in my head. And to say that I was disappointed with the comment on an interview that says the committee/council felt I was in breach. Not I was in breach, felt I was in breach. And the mix-up seems to be with council mixing up the work life with my life as a councillor or something along those lines. And so I'm asking my questions, you know, can this council be confident that there are no more breaches or have not been more breaches? What if this council learns tonight, right now, that this same councillor in March of 2021 reaches out to a resident of Richmond County and talks about the lack of professionalism of the one staff member that this council has, so CAO Don Marchand, references it in a text, and then goes as far as to say, I'm going to embarrass him if he doesn't learn to stand up properly during O Canada.
Right, so I'm not gonna pretend I have a crystal ball.
Okay.
If there's a breach that needs to be reported, Tommy, I'm gonna just suggest that you do that.
Okay, and so what is the process for that? Because I have it right here on my
Yeah,
phone.
so the process would be to, I suppose, reach out to me as a warden, and we can, you know, if you want to send me information,
I can.
then you're welcome to do that. But anytime there's a breach to the code of conduct, it's the responsibility of council to address it.
Warden Amanda Mumbercat also responded to Sampson's concerns about the communication strategies of the municipality in terms of the general public and local media. Among her responses, the warden noted that she had conducted an interview with Telile Community Television about this very subject.
I do want to also mention that, you know, just in trying to help the public understand council's kind of role in this and the process that we have, I did also do an interview with Telile, because people have asked the question, how can a council investigate itself? But at the end of the day, we're an independent body, and
Yep.
so that is the procedure, right? And there's a gap at the provincial level that
There's
we
a
are
huge
hoping is going to be addressed really, really quick, really soon.
Yeah,
I'm
there's a
totally
huge gap,
interested.
and
Yeah.
I had posted on social media asking some questions about things, and there's a situation similar to, you know, a breach in the code of conduct in Kentville, and
It happens all over the
very
province.
different interpretation, but it involves different variables and all
Yeah.
of that stuff, right?
Yeah, it
So-
happens all over the province, and the province, I think, recognizes that, but it's just, it just never can happen quickly enough with these kinds of things, right? So,
Yeah, I know as a parent and as a dad, and I'm surprised this room isn't filled right now with people from all over the county expressing complete and total.
well, certainly, we've heard from lots of folks on the issue, and glad you could bring the questions forward.
Tommy Sampson's questioning about the Michael Diggdon situation during last week's Committee of the Whole meeting also included questions about the timeline of events that led to Diggdon's suspension and some clarification on the process by which a municipal councillor declares themselves to be in a conflict of interest regarding council business.
On the December 6th, 2021 Committee of the Whole meeting, we had Councillor Diggdon declare a conflict before a motion was made. And it was pertaining to an in-camera session. And then on the 20th of 2021, the regular council meeting, we had a motion so moved by Deputy Warden, seconded by Councillor Sean Sampson, that council accept the recommendation of the Committee of the Whole, and that Warden Mumbercat and Councillor Sean Sampson move forward with, and so it was just a continuation of that same motion. And in that particular circumstance, as I watched the video footage, Councillor Diggdon did not declare a conflict on that. He actually didn't do anything, which I thought was a nay vote, but it was recorded as a yes vote. And so he did not declare a conflict, and I was trying to figure out what the logic would be for that.
Yeah, so anytime a councillor does not cast a vote, it is considered a nay vote. We've been through that with the rules of order. So if there's a correction we need to make in our minutes, Tommy, then, and was that the December 21st one you said?
That's the December 20th,
20th,
regular
okay.
council.
So maybe we could ask Dawn and Yvonne to kind of look at that and just review if that needed to be recorded as a nay.
And so then I guess my follow-up question would be, in that process of declaring a conflict, does a councillor sitting on council actually have to say, I'm declaring a conflict on whatever the topic is? And the reason I'm asking that question is in the March 28th special meeting, I noticed Deputy Warden waited, so she was asked to read a motion. You waited for that because I think you were expecting a declaration of conflict to be made. And then on 2 separate occasions throughout the next, let's say, 3 to 4 minutes, the warden prompted Councillor Diggdon to declare a conflict. And as I watched that meeting several times, I didn't actually hear Councillor Diggdon declare a conflict. I just know that his camera went off, so I'm not even sure if he left the meeting or if he didn't. But then it was noted that he did declare a conflict. And so I'm just trying to figure out, in that sense, what constitutes declaring a conflict. Because it is concerning for me as a resident in this county. So I've heard, what I did hear, at least what I interpreted, was, I guess so, I don't know why I was brought into regular session if I was still, and then it stops. And then Madam Warden, you said, well, we finished our in-camera session and we just came back to the public. And so now you have an opportunity to declare a conflict before the motion. And then he shut his camera off or logged off, I'm not sure, because we don't get to see that, right? So I'm just trying to figure out, with specific reference to conflict of interest, what is expected? I know the MGA is pretty clear on it, but is there a set protocol in terms of what this council expects for declaring a conflict of interest?
So I do recall the March 28th meeting, and so, you know, anything that's discussed in camera, we
Yeah.
can't bring out,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And
Yeah.
so, when conflicts are declared in and out of camera,
Yeah.
that's, you know, that kind of, I guess, would partially determine why we would have expected Councillor Diggdon to declare a conflict in a public meeting, when we were discussing a matter that was pertaining to him. In terms of what, you know, how the declaration is made, I would just say that the councillor needs to declare it.
So in that meeting,
Yeah.
on the 28th, he didn't declare a conflict, and I'm wondering why.
He left the meeting.
Well,
did
he
not.
didn't declare a conflict, but then you had noted that he did declare a conflict. And unless there's something edited in that video, which I'm assuming it wasn't because it was a
No.
live stream,
Yeah, we can't edit.
I didn't actually hear him declare a conflict. I know his camera went down. So I don't know if that means he left the meeting or if he just shut off his camera.
Right.
But he didn't actually declare a conflict on something, you know, that I'm assuming he clearly should have declared a conflict. And I think personally, and I'm not as well versed in the protocol as you guys are, but I think you went out of your way to provide every opportunity for that. And I still didn't hear it.
So if the words weren't actually said, and I will have to go back and watch it, I really will.
Oh, no, there's
but-
no if. They
Yeah, no,
definitely weren't.
but what I'm saying is that we obviously interpreted the camera going off as the declaration of conflict, and maybe that is something we need to be more specific about in future.
Yeah, I mean, typically when the camera goes off,
Yeah.
that's the same as somebody leaving the room,
meeting,
right? So we just
Yeah.
did some municipal training, like,
Okay.
and basically and again, that's after this meeting, but the rules are that to be part of the meeting, the
Yeah.
public needs to be able to physically see you and
Okay.
hear you, to know that it is you.
Okay.
So when your camera is off,
Yeah.
whether you're whatever, you're then not in the meeting.
It's probably something we need to look into,
Yeah.
because I feel like if you're going to declare a conflict, you need to specifically
Say the
state that
words.
you're declaring a conflict.
Okay.
And it may have just been that it was in our minds, and when the camera went off, it is how we interpreted it.
Okay.
And so we definitely need to clarify that.
We have to do it ourselves anyway.
Yes.
So whether Councillor Diggdon did or not, we can't force him to.
No, that's right.
That's right.
We're responsible to declare it ourselves.
I
I
think
mean-
there's a section in MGA that speaks about voidable proceedings. You know what I mean? Like, so if he would have voted on something that he didn't declare a conflict on, we can't, like Councillor Brent Sampson said, I don't think we can force him to declare that conflict.
No.
It's up to him. If he doesn't, then I think there's a stipulation in MGA, correct me if I'm wrong, Don, but I think there's section 299 of the MGA that states voidable proceedings to the point where if we felt Councillor Diggdon voted on something he shouldn't have, we have a period of time where we can challenge that situation.
So he's expected to declare, or whoever the councillor is, would be
Yeah,
expected to
anytime,
declare
yeah.
anytime there's a conflict.
Yeah, and if my memory serves me right, I don't think he actually said the words, I'm declaring a conflict, but he said, I'm shutting my camera off. Text me when I can come back to the meeting, right? So, yeah,
He didn't say that during the public meeting.
May have
And
Yeah,
then-
I
and
feel
you
like there
guys
was
can-
some, I feel like there was some confusion because because when we were in camera, he was not, his camera wasn't off, he was
Off.
gone.
Yeah, I
Right.
assume. that,
Right,
yeah.
and so we brought him back into the meeting, and
Right.
the impression I got from his reaction was that he felt we had already made the motion, and we were bringing him back in
After the
to
motion.
adjourn the meeting.
Yeah, I'm assuming
Because he
it's gotta
did
be
seem
done.
to be, I agree, like a bit confused,
Yeah.
like,
Right.
why was he there if he needed to declare a conflict?
Okay.
That was my interpretation.
Yeah, so
Probably one
we
of
had
those
to come
things
back
never
to a
would've
public
occurred
meeting
Okay.
to make the
In
motion.
person, that's
Yeah.
right.
That was
Yeah.
me in camera, and he was
Okay,
confused.
I appreciate, I'm just
Yeah.
looking for.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I
I'm
Yeah,
think,
so you're right, W.D. Warren, he was confused when he came back to a public meeting.
yeah,
We had to put that motion forward that was discussed in camera, so we had to bring him back, and he was expected again to declare a conflict. And like you said, he was like
Yeah, we could have just
Right.
waited to bring him back till after we did the motion.
Right.
the problem is
didn't.
then the declaration of conflict is not in public.
Agreed.
Because it would have been in camera.
Right.
Right.
So, and this is truly,
It's-
it is part of the challenge of trying to do
Navigating it.
these things in a virtual setting. I think Councillor Sampson
Yeah,
has
I
said
think
it
if it had been in
well,
here,
right?
you probably would have figured out what
it
was
would have
going
been,
on.
Okay.
yeah. But anyways, it's a fair point, and we do need to, I think, be more specific on what constitutes the declaration of a conflict, and it needs to be the words stated and not just the camera go off.
Also causing some concern for Richmond Municipal Council these days, the issue of new taxation measures that non-resident property owners could face as a result of the new provincial budget released earlier this month. The municipality of Chester has sounded the alarm bells about what these measures could mean for non-resident property owners and for municipal councillors who have to try to wade through all of this and figure out what it's going to mean for their own tax rolls. Richmond Warden Amanda Mumbercat shared the concerns of the municipality of Chester, which line up with the concerns of Richmond Municipal Council. So here is Warden Mumbercat at the April 11th Committee of the Whole meeting with her thoughts on the whole issue.
The provincial budget this year included a 5% deed transfer tax and a $2 per $100 of assessment property tax for non-residential properties in Nova Scotia. So there's a whole set of criteria around it, but these would include, in a lot of cases, seasonal properties. And of course, we know that Richmond County has all kinds of those. You know, when I first saw the information come out, I definitely was concerned because property tax has always been the purview and the revenue source of municipalities. And to see the province dipping their oar in these waters is really concerning to me. And I think the way that it was articulated in the letter from the municipality of Chester was extremely well put. They cited 5 specific concerns. First of all, that the annual $2 per $100 of assessment is exorbitant. You know, it's by far in most municipalities the single largest property tax increase ever levied for communities. The province is encroaching into the municipal tax base with this form of direct provincial property taxation. And what that could potentially mean for us is, you know, residents really, at the end of the day, they don't care who is taxing them. What they care about is how much they're being taxed for property taxes. And you know, municipalities are going to wear this regardless of where the bill comes from. I think it's also going to it's going to be harmful to us in terms of our ability to potentially have to, increase our own tax rate if we came to that, right? And we know we're facing rising costs, so I'm really concerned about that piece as well. You know, I think the initiative was intended to address housing supply, from what I understand. I don't think they're going to hit their target here because, you know, some of these properties, as they're selling, they're often in very rural areas. You know, people's ability to pay these skyrocketing assessment prices is not going to be increasing. There's no indication that these funds would be coming back to municipalities where the problem is occurring. Frankly, you know, municipal. I guess I've always considered housing, it's a provincial responsibility, but it's really a municipal problem, right? We are the ones who hear about it. You know, the council in Chester also is not anticipating that the properties impacted would be aligned with the attainable housing goals. They're not going to be relevant to trying to resolve the housing crisis, especially in rural areas, I believe. And then, of course, they raise the concern about seasonal ownership, seasonal property ownership by non-residents. I mean, how many people do we know who are not full-time residents of Richmond County who contribute so greatly to to our communities, either through causes or, jumping in as volunteers in the summer, or, et cetera, the list goes on. So I really found that they were smart in how they identified the specific reasons that this tax is going to be causing a problem. I'm also very concerned the fact that municipalities were not consulted in advance of this. So this, although it was part of the platform, I know that NSFM had made several overtures to try to get more information about it, but it really was not forthcoming until the budget came down. And what's also not clear right now is the detail of how it will be implemented. Right now the funds look like they're going to general revenue. How is that going to solve the housing crisis in rural Nova Scotia, is my question. Locally here, I've heard from several realtors and other folks. Dr. Bob Martell emailed. We've got some correspondence from Ralph Bowman, all expressing these same concerns that although well-intended, there are going to be some unintended consequences that municipalities in particular are going to have to deal with. And when we look at a company such as the Bowman Group, with the Friends United Center and what it will mean for their business model, it's really, really concerning. And it's putting some of these pillars, I think, of our communities at risk.
I think, Warren Margaret, I think you hit the nail on the head there. I think similar to what Chester did, I think we should, again, like you said, the province did not ask our municipality, or does it look like any municipality for their insight. So like Chester, I think we should send our own insight and our own concern as a county and as a municipality, a concerned municipality. I think we should send a letter as well.
NSFM hadn't said anything to us. I mean, we get regular updates from them on many different topics, and this was, it seemed to really hit them as well, that they had not been consulted. And I think, that's our tool to work with the government to come up with solutions, perhaps for housing. And, the other thing that concerned me that I'd like to see added to our letter of concern is something, in terms of, how does this work in the real world? So how does this affect our, our revenue? We would assume that it'll be listed on our tax bill. So then we're in charge of the collection piece. And what if someone pays part of their bill? Does that money go to the province? Are we going to hold the receivable for the province for this money, or is it going to go directly to them? I think there are a lot of questions that they haven't considered. And again, I can appreciate that in a lot of cases when budgets happen, they haven't necessarily thought of all the parts. But those are some that came to my mind. Certainly the lack of consideration, but also just logistically, how would this even work?
NSFM held a Cape Breton gathering on Friday afternoon, and you can imagine this was on the table for discussion. And what they've been able to find out is that the province intends to bill this directly, so municipalities would not be. So I mean, that
should
to
be
me
interesting.
raises a whole pile of other questions, in terms of, okay, now are we going to create a new department to handle all of that building, and how is that going to work? Because are we, is there really a business case here for this? Or are we going to be spending more money
Then we're going to make.
than we're going to make, right? So, so I think you're right about the real world considerations, and the fact is that has come to us through NSFM. We don't really have any written correspondence on it.
In the end, municipal councillors present at the April 11th Committee of the Whole meeting voted unanimously for the warden to draft a letter that will be sent on to Premier Tim Houston, Richmond MLA Trevor Boudreau, Finance Minister Alan McMaster, and the Minister of Housing and Municipal Affairs, John Lohr, concerning the deed transfer tax and the raise in property taxes for those having land in Nova Scotia but living outside of the province. If you tune into Telile 24/7 regularly, or you check out our municipal council coverage here on Telile or on our YouTube channel, you might recall that earlier this year, council sent a list of 4 J-class roads for the province to consider repairing over the coming months. Well, the results have come back in from the Department of Public Works for Nova Scotia, and only one of those 4 submissions has received approval to get some work done this year. Here's Richmond CAO Don Marchand to explain what happened.
We got back a letter at the end of March indicating that one road was approved, the other 3 were rejected. However, they did indicate that we could provide those roads in future if we ever wanted to add those to a future request. As you can see on the letter from the Public Works Office of the Minister, The road is Langley Lane, and that's in Point Tupper. It's 0.36 kilometers. The total estimated cost, excluding HST, is 145. The cost shared estimates, excluding HST, are 72,500. As you can see by the Director of Public Works comments, and in the letter as well, it does indicate that we have 20 business days from the time of receipt. So he's worked that out to, from the 24th would be 20 days, would be April 20th. That would be our safe deadline. One project is better than none, but it is a substantial amount of money, and it's certainly a decision that council is going to have to make to press forward at this point in time. It certainly wouldn't be enough time between now and, of course, the council meeting to finally approve the recommendation of council, of committee at whole, but I'm sure we could, forward them off indication that we would be going forward with the project or not going forward with the project, and put the final approval at council. The Director of Public Works did say that the estimates could be higher once tendered too, so I would dare say that the 72.5, excluding HSC, would be the least amount of cost to us.
Yeah, that is some of the feedback that I've been receiving from our MLAs, that costs are coming in much higher than they would have this time last year. So that's definitely a risk we run.
That would come out of the, whatever building fund, the former gas tax money, would it not? We could leverage that, use that towards this?
I believe it does qualify.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
That's where I was going, Brent. as
That's,
well,
yeah.
It's the road that I brought forward when we were compiling the list. It's in dire shape. It's had very little routine maintenance done. I have residents on that road who have lived there their entire lives and, can count maybe one or two times that they've even had ditching done or whatever. So it's in dire straits, whether it's spring, winter. I think there would be very few days that the road is in good shape. I think paving it would secure its good nature for a fair bit of time, and I think would remove a lot of concerns that those residents would have, and myself as well.
We put these four on the list for a reason, because they were in dire need of repair. So, and again, going back to Councillor Brent, his statement about the gas tax community fund, I'm sure that we could take it from there and it would qualify for it, right? So, I'd be willing to support that motion.
Just perhaps, CAO, if you can just help me out. So my motion would be that we respond to Department of Public Works in the affirmative that we would like to proceed with the project at Langley Lane.
Richmond County notify the Nova Scotia Department of Public Works that we would like to proceed with the project at Langley Lane, as outlined in their correspondence from March 24th.
Councillors in attendance at the April 11th meeting of Richmond's Committee of the Whole voted unanimously to support the Langley Lane J-Class Road paving project. We're going to stay on the road for the next portion of Telile 24/7. That's because we all know the impact that rising fuel prices have had on our budgets and our pocketbooks, and that's not only for local drivers, it's also for people like the members of the Richmond County Truckers Association, who have the official contract to take leftover waste from the Richmond Municipal Landfill to places like Guysborough and the Sydney area for their final destination. Well, they're experiencing a pinch at the pocketbook as well, too. So here is Richmond CAO Don Marchand to explain the situation the truckers face and what council could do about it.
Diesel prices obviously have gone fairly high, and they're asking that we review the way we provide them funding for their service. We do currently have an agreement that we've signed back in 2019. It was a 5-year deal. At that time, we gave them a slight increase in prior rates, and these folks have been doing it for the last 20 years. So obviously the cost to take garbage to Sydney and Guysborough has increased substantially. So they're requesting that we look at reviewing the rates based on the Truckers Association of Nova Scotia monthly diesel fuel prices. Now, we currently do that with our garbage collectors. We do a fuel price adjustment, I'm going to say semi-annually. I know we were doing semi-annually. I'd have to confirm it's either semi-annually or annually that we were changing the prices based on the increase in the diesel fuel price. And I think that based on the information from the Provincial Truckers Association, it's done similarly. the Director of Public Works seems to think that, the request is reasonable. It is obviously going to impact the budget. We're looking at anywhere between $14,500 to $18,000 in increased expenses to truck that material to those two places. They're quite far, Sydney and Guysborough. It certainly could be something referred to budget, but I think, we're going to have council, agree to have a new agreement drawn up and get signatures on it, so.
So when I reviewed the chart that was provided by the Director of Public Works, he provided the diesel fuel price chart, basically, which talked about what the surcharge has been since we negotiated that contract in 2019. So my understanding is that since April of 19, we've been paying a 10% surcharge. So even in those months, for example, February to December of 2020, January to June of 2021, when the surcharge would have been, according to the Truckers Association, under 10%, we've still been paying a 10% surcharge. Is that correct?
No, I think the price that was there in 2019, prior to April 1st, we just increased the prices 10%.
Okay, so we've
So
been
they've
paying.
been steady since then, they haven't changed. So
Okay.
there has been no adjustment made up or down because of the fuel price
Well, I figured we
changing.
wasn't going down. I just assumed
Yeah.
that it was consistently a plus 10%.
The rate stays the same, it's stayed the same for the last 3 years.
So, I mean, for me, I'm not adverse to agreeing to their request, because we need them to be we need these truckers to be in business so they can actually take our materials to the landfill for sure. But I would like to see that it's a fluid piece, meaning whatever it is for that month, if it's 2%, then we're gonna pay 2%. And if it's 24% as it was in February, then we're gonna pay 24%, right? So as long as, and I think that's what I understand from Chris's briefing note. Yeah, so as long as
Yeah.
that's what it is to me, I would be in favor of it, but I just wanted to be sure I was clear on what Chris's notes were.
Yeah, and it does have the opportunity to go down as well.
Right,
Right.
right, where in the past it had just been a set rate instead of going
Yeah.
down, yeah.
Yeah, I think I'd be okay with it based on the Director of Public Works feeling comfortable with this. I mean, I don't think I don't think any of us haven't noticed the price of diesel, especially much higher than gas, especially lately. It's not a long-term solution to leave it at that same rate. There's no other way around it.
And I know all too well what it takes to ship some product across this province, right? So, yeah, no, I'm in agreement with it, yeah.
So the motion is that the municipality adjust the rates for hauling municipal solid waste and recyclables in accordance with the Truckers Association of Nova Scotia monthly diesel fuel price as posted on the Nova Scotia government website.
I think it's just important for members of the public to know that the Director of Public Works has estimated that this may cause about, a $14,000 or $18,000 adjustment on our budget, which is really in the size of our budget, not really a material number. So I think that that's important as people consider, our decision.
Despite this concern raised by the Deputy Warden, the motion was passed unanimously by all councillors present at the April 11th Richmond Committee of the Whole meeting. You may recall that earlier this year, Richmond Municipal Council worked with local residents to put together a new accessibility strategy. It's something that municipalities across the province have been working on, and they're planning to submit it to the provincial government later this spring. Well, the latest meeting of Richmond's Committee of the Whole included a visit via Zoom from 3 different people who have been working on this strategy with the local contingent to try to develop a new accessibility plan for Richmond County for the next few years. Here they are right now, introduced by Richmond Warden Amanda Mumbercat.
The consultants working on the plans for us are Intelligent Futures and Level Playing Field. They're here with us this evening to give us a little update on some of the details of the plan.
I am Alistair. I'm with Intelligent Futures firm based out of Calgary. And we're a group of versatile problem solvers with our core purpose of finding better ways of living together. To realize this purpose, we put people at the center of the change process to improve the lives of the folks of communities where we work. As part of that, we have developed this accessibility plan. I'm also joined this evening with Kristen and Darby from Level Playing Field.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Darby Young. I'm the founder of Level Playing Field. We are extremely excited to be part of this project. Level Playing Field is an accessibility firm that strives to bring in lived experience into the project to make sure that we can remove barriers for all individuals, not just persons with disabilities, but everyone, as we strive to make communities more accessible and inclusive and safe and warm and friendly for everyone. We've been around, we are based in Calgary, but we've been around since 2015, and we are coast to coast using the lived experience aspects in removing those barriers. Here, I'll pass it over to Kristen.
Hello, everyone. As Darby said, I'm Kristen Westlake. I've been working on this accessibility plan as the lead accessibility strategist with Level Playing Field. We're very excited to be presenting this to you guys. It's been a lot of hard work on everybody's part, and we're really excited to see it move forward. So Intelligent Futures and Level Playing Field have been working with the municipality and the AAC since January of 2022 to create this accessibility plan. The accessibility plan will provide strategic direction to guide accessibility initiatives to make the municipality accessible by 2030. So just a little bit about accessibility in Nova Scotia. So according to the Canadian Survey on Disability from 2017 by Statistics Canada, 30% of Nova Scotians aged 15 years and older identify as having at least one disability, which is just under 230,000 Nova Scotians. In addition, 20% of the province's residents are 65 years of age or older, and in Richmond, 27.7% of the county is 65 or older. So Nova Scotia's Accessibility Act was implemented in 2017. Nova Scotia is the third province to implement an Accessibility Act, and the goal of the Act is to prevent and remove barriers that restrict people with disabilities from fully participating in society. So some municipal implications that this has, the municipality is required to have a publicly available accessibility plan. They're required to update the accessibility plan every 3 years to be in line with the provincial changes, and the goal is to be fully accessible by 2030. So the planning process from January 2022 to April 2022, very quickly, Intelligent Futures and Level Playing Field investigated local accessibility by conducting site assessments, existing practice research, policy investigations, public engagement, AAC collaboration, and staff and committee workshops. So as part of the site assessment, Level Playing Field reviewed the current accessibility of the municipality of Richmond County and the village of St. Peters. The work began with a desktop exercise to determine what locations to visit and experience virtually. We also spoke with many members of the AAC to determine what locations we should be looking at. We viewed the potential locations on Google Street View, as well as got many images from the AAC to take a look. We reviewed the county and village websites and reviewed Parks Canada information. We assessed the accessibility and accessing relevant information on the above websites. We reviewed new provincial legislation on accessibility and other Nova Scotia communities' accessibility strategies. So the areas we looked at were Arisat, Louisville, La Roduse, Evanston, Gilmadam, and the village of St. Peters. And some of the things we were looking at were, so we looked at site access, including accessible parking spaces and curb cuts to entrances. We looked at sidewalks, walking and bicycle trails, parks, libraries, recreation centers, and community centers, as well as municipal and village buildings, just to name a few.
So in addition to those site assessments, as on the screen here, we did extensive existing practice research to see what best practice is in accessibility currently, as well as looked at all local and provincial policy documents to understand where this will align. We conducted public engagement for 2.5, almost 3 weeks with members of the county. There was significant collaboration with the AAC throughout this process, and there was a series of staff and committee workshops which have shaped these plans. So jumping into overviewing the plan, which you should have all seen, which should be included in the package there. The plan itself has 4 main components: the vision and statement of commitment, the governance structure and how this plan will be enacted over the coming years. There are 5 focus areas and 14 short-term actions. So the vision outlined in the plan states that the County of Richmond is inclusive and provides meaningful access for all, regardless of ability or age. As a community, we will promote awareness, remove barriers, and put lived experience at the forefront of future decisions. When looking at the governance structure, this is the requirements for continued improvement of overall accessibility within the municipality and how it will be enacted in the coming years. The main components outline that you as the municipality will develop action plans and update the priorities every 3 years as mandated by the Nova Scotian Accessibility Act. Have continued guidance and provided by the Accessibility Advisory Committee. Update the plan and actions as provincial legislation changes. And we have suggested partnering with the village and neighboring communities to onboard or designate an accessibility coordinator to implement this plan. When looking at the focus areas, as mentioned, there are 5 different focus areas. Each focus area has a commitment, which is the commitment by the municipality for that focus area, a starting point, so what it is looking like right now, which includes the achievements and barriers, and then also policies to be enacted. So when going through the focus areas, the first being goods and services, and the commitment being that all staff and service providers supply and advocate for accessible goods and services in the municipality of the County of Richmond and continue to identify and improve barriers of the use of these local services. As information and communication, everyone can meaningfully access, receive, understand, and use information provided by the municipality of the County of Richmond and their partners, regardless of ability or technology availability. Looking at transportation, everyone in the municipality of the County of Richmond is able to get where they need to go through equitable transportation access. For employment, the municipality of the County of Richmond and its partners create awareness and advocate for employment opportunities that are accessible to people of all abilities, including those with disabilities. And finally, the built environment, which states that all infrastructure, buildings, streets, sidewalks, and shared spaces in the municipality of the County of Richmond are safe, maintained, and provide meaningful access to all. There are 14 short-term actions proposed in the plan for enacting in the next 3 years. Actions included in this plan were included if they are in line with provincial policies and requirements, an action that is within the control of the municipality, and something that is achievable in the next 3 years, or if it will make sizable difference in the future. So to go through these 14 actions, first being that it's a review of the maintenance procedures for gravel and snow removal for all sidewalks in the county, modifying hiring, funding, evaluation, and procurement policies and procedures to prioritize persons with disabilities, advocating for accessibility improvements to widen the paving of shoulders and create an improved winter maintenance procedure, partnering with the village to create a business survey to understand and create a record of which businesses are accessible, updating committee and council communications policies and procedures to provide accessible resources for meetings and engagements, partnering with the village to review current accessibility standards at key facilities and conducting Rick Hansen certifications for municipal buildings, updating and standardizing all county signage with braille, tactile, and other sign elements, review of current recreational programming to identify and propose accessible recreational program options, partnering with the village to review current accessibility standards at key facilities and conduct Rick Hansen review of all the pedestrian road crossing locations to advocate for well-painted locations with visual and audible cues, partnering with the village to offer training and professional development for staff, commission, and local businesses for accessibility, including accessible customer service, information and communications, and design standards, attracting more people with lived experience to the Accessibility Advisory Committee, advocating for and support accessible trail and pedestrian crossing developments to ensure the network is safe and accessible for all users. Review and revise emergency management planning to include accessibility. And finally, updating the municipal website to an accessible standard. So with that, we are wrapping up this process that, as Kristen had mentioned, has been a quick process, but has had a lot of really meaningful and important inputs throughout. The next step is going to the Accessibility Advisory Committee for approval and endorsement, and then from there it will be coming back, I believe, at your next council meeting for full council approval.
Alistair, Kristen, and Darby, that's a really great overview of in a short period of time, of a whole lot of work.
The detailed plans were just
Yes.
emailed to us, so we haven't had a chance to review those. I'm guessing Alistair or the folks at Level Playing Field, if we did have questions between now and the regular council meeting, because I understand we're going to be looking to proceed with this at the regular council, I'm assuming you're okay if we email you with any questions that we may have.
There is time over the coming months or the coming weeks, sorry, to address any questions that arise.
So our original timing, we had hoped that our accessibility committee would be able to make a recommendation for council to approve the plan at the last meeting, but we had some adjustments, and so we're meeting. We have a scheduled meeting for April 21st, which will still be before our next council meeting, I think, is it?
25th is our next meeting.
25th,
Our
yeah.
regular
So
meeting, yeah.
we're a couple of days before our next council meeting, so we'll hopefully at that time get the recommendation from the AAC for council to approve. And then it'll be up to us to do that on our regular meeting. So.
Among those attending the Richmond Council Committee of the Whole meeting on April 11th were Annette Keogh of the Straight Richmond Community Health Board. Keogh and her colleagues are hoping to see Richmond Council come on board for a new plan to ensure that students attending schools across the county have healthy food to eat no matter what their financial situation may be. So here is Warden Amanda Mumbercat to explain the program.
The Straight Richmond Community Health Board is an official endorser of the National Coalition for Healthy School Food, and they've invited us to join them in calling for a universal healthy school food program. Students need access to good food to fuel their minds and bodies, but many students do come to school without full bellies for a variety of reasons, from long commutes to early morning practices, not being hungry when they wake up, busy routines in the morning, household food insecurity, of course, would be a contributor there as well. It really surprised me that Canada is the only G7 country without a national school food program. I was pretty shocked to read that. She, further outlined that good nutrition impacts children's health and well-being and learning. If children are not adequately nourished during childhood, the impact can really last a lifetime. Hunger in childhood has been, shown to have long-term adverse consequences for health. So I guess at this point, the Community Health Board would be seeking a motion from Council to support the ongoing efforts of the Coalition for Healthy School Food to advocate for a universal healthy school food program based on the shared belief that all children and youth should have daily access to healthy food at school.
That is surprising, though, that Canada is, surprising and discouraging, to be honest,
Yeah, for sure.
Well, this will be one of the steps to make that not be the reality any longer.
Right.
So I think we, as a council, should be putting our support behind the project, for sure.
So the motion is to support the ongoing efforts of the Coalition for Healthy School Food to advocate for a universal healthy school food program based on the shared belief that all children and youth should have daily access to healthy food at school.
This request from the Straight Richmond Community Health Board received unanimous approval among the councillors in attendance at the April 11th Committee of the Whole meeting. Potlotek First Nation is going to host the Mi'kmaq Summer Games this year, and Richmond Municipal Council is mulling over a financial assistance package to help out Potlotek in terms of hosting the games. Here is the councillor for the area, District 5's Brent Sampson, explaining the progress of this pitch from Potlotek to council.
So we had this letter come through. I believe it was around the end of February. I've since spoken on a couple of occasions to Mr. Isaiah Bernard. If you notice in the second part of the package, there was 4 different sponsorship levels. Just wanted to have a discussion here tonight whether we wanted to choose one of those levels or at what point, I guess, we wanted to make a decision on this. From what I gathered, they understand that even if the money is not released right away till after budget time, that's okay, as long as they have an idea of what to expect, just so that they can properly make their budget for the games this summer, which are fast approaching, right?
In the past, when events like this have occurred, I'm confident we've supported them, but it's the level that I'm not sure about. I'm just not sure what we've done in the past in terms of what's reasonable.
Well, I think in the past, I'm trying to remember if we ever did. I think there may have been one year we did. Yeah, I think we were going to, and it got canceled. However, either way, normally we would bring these items up for discussion at budget. I'm not sure how time sensitive it is. Budget deliberations will start rather soon, and these things will be amongst the first things discussed during the budget deliberations. So you'll have a better idea then. I mean, if we can, if you could hold off a decision for a couple of weeks.
Will that work, Councillor Sampson? Or?
I get the sense they'd prefer to have a rough idea sooner, and that's why I brought it back now. I mean, if that's the decision of council, that's okay. I think they're just in their planning phase and trying to determine where they'll be at financially.
And I'm sure they're attempting to leverage funds for this, and so understanding the local contribution is going to be key for them to be able to do that.
I believe so.
Yeah.
Generally, there's an ask to the municipality where it's occurring. From what I get. Now, I'm not sure if they're looking for smaller commitments outside of that, but I believe in the past, it's depending on which county it's happening, in which municipality. That's where it's one of the main places they go looking for funding.
So if we gave them some kind of like minimum, ask or minimum investment, at least it'd be something for them to go by, right, Councillor Johnson? If we gave them some sort of minimum number.
So we could kind of make a decision on a minimum level and still discuss this at budget time, if that's.
Right. Yeah, and if it's higher at budget time, at least,
Yeah.
at least you got a minimum.
And I'm sure that would help in the planning process, I would say.
Yeah. So are you thinking, would councillors be comfortable with, if I look at the smallest sponsorship level of $5,000, to set that as a minimum towards the games? I mean, what I do know of the summer games is that it draws a big crowd to the community, and the economic spin-off is really, really great, and not to mention the cultural and social connections as well.
Something to be very proud of, that they're coming to Richmond County, right? So, I mean, for me, the 5,000 would be an absolute, obviously it's the minimum, but it would, it's not the number I was thinking about, but I just didn't know what was appropriate, and I think it also would be determined based on the rest of our budget discussions. But, in my mind, we'd be at least at the $10,000 level, but.
Yeah, that's where I was going, deputy work.
Yeah.
That's okay. Yeah.
And if you'd like to suggest that as the minimum, for our investment, that's totally fine. I just recognize they didn't have a level below 5.
The staff has been working really hard to create this budget for us to review, and we wouldn't want to, minimize that work that they're doing, but, to me, the minimum would be 10.
So perhaps the motion then could be to ask staff to include a minimum of a $10,000 investment in the Mi'kmaq Summer Games into the budget draft that they're creating for us. We can't.
And if that number were to change, we can let them know that if we decide during budget deliberations that it would happen to be more, we'll let them know, but at least they can count on this.
Right.
On the minimum.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd be comfortable with that.
Okay.
So the motion from council to ask municipal staff to try for a $10,000 window for funding for this summer's Mi'kmaq Summer Games passed unanimously among the councillors that were in attendance at the April 11th Committee of the Whole meeting. And there you have it. That wraps up this week's edition of Telile 24/7. Thank you for tuning in, and a big thank you to my colleagues at Telile Community Television, Nick Boudreau, Cody, Pardy, and Becky Bourinot, for filming and formatting the footage from Richmond Municipal Council's Committee of the Whole meeting on April the 11th. If you have any comments about what you've seen over the past hour, or suggestions for future shows, feel free to contact me directly or to contact Telile Community Television in Arishat, and don't forget to follow Telile on social media. I'm Adam Cook. Thank you again for tuning in to Telile 24/7. I look forward to seeing you again next week with a brand new show. Bye for now.